Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. That way, you'll always stay connected to our stories and never miss the next adventure. The Infinite Inquiry hummed with the kind of sterile efficiency that made Gina want to scream into a pillow. Not that she would, professionalism and all that, but the temptation lingered like a persistent itch between her shoulder blades. The medical bay stretched before her in antiseptic white and chrome, filled with equipment that blinked and whirred in languages her brain couldn't quite parse, even after 3 rotations of service aboard this floating testament to galactic cooperation. She stood in line behind Mopril, watching the reptilian medical officer's scales shimmer under the fluorescent lights as he completed his quarterly genomic scan. The machine, a towering cylinder of translucent material that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, accepted him with a gentle chime, ran its protocols, and released him with another chime exactly 90 seconds later. Mopril stepped out, nodded curtly to the attendant, and moved along. Simple, clean, boring. "Next," called Neil Carr, the insectoid researcher whose multifaceted eyes caught every spectrum of light in ways that made Gina vaguely uncomfortable. Not because Neil Carr was threatening, quite the opposite, but because being seen in ultraviolet and infrared simultaneously felt like standing naked in a room full of strangers. Gina shuffled forward, already reaching for her datapad to check messages. "Please approach the scanner with reverence," Neil Carr said, mandibles clicking in what might have been disapproval. This technology has served the Galactic Medical Consortium for 8,000 rotations. It has cataloged the genomic signatures of 10,000 species across— Yeah, Gina interrupted, not looking up from her messages. 3 from Romy, all marked urgent, which meant they were definitely not urgent. 1 from Dr. Lin requesting her presence after the scan. 1 from her brother back on the homeworld asking if aliens really did have 3. She swiped that one away unread. Ancient tech, very impressive, deeply significant. Got it. Neil Carr's antennae twitched. Disapproval, definitely. Gina stepped into the scanner, still scrolling. The cylinder sealed around her with a pneumatic hiss, and the bioluminescent patterns began their dance, spiraling, pulsing, probing. She'd done this 6 times already since joining the Infinite Inquiry. Routine didn't even begin to cover it. Around the medical bay, other species waited their turns with expressions ranging from solemn respect to mild anxiety. Fenjo, the amphibian administrator whose skin glistened with perpetual moisture, stood near the doorway, wringing her webbed hands together, her throat sac inflating and deflating in nervous rhythm. Even though she'd done this hundreds of times, she treated each scan like a religious experience. Gina typed out a response to Romy. "In scanner now. Whatever emergency you invented can wait." The patterns intensified, washing over her skin in waves of light that tickled more than anything else. She could feel the scanner's energy penetrating her body. Not painful, just weird, like being watched from the inside out. The machine hummed, a deep resonance that vibrated through her bones. Then it stuttered. The hum became a whine. The gentle pulsing lights turned sharp, staccato, urgent. Gina looked up from her datapad. "Ah," she said eloquently. The lights in the medical bay shifted from soft white to alarming red. Klaxons, because of course there were klaxons, began wailing in a pitch that suggested someone was dying. Possibly everyone. Possibly right now. The scanner's display, previously showing gentle waves of data, now flashed text in Galactic Standard so large even Gina could read it upside down through the translucent cylinder. Error. Sample displays. Self-replication. Alert. Uncontrolled cellular division detected paradox. Tissue regeneration. During scan quarantine protocols initiating around the bay, every alien present froze. Nilkar's antennae stood straight up, rigid with what could only be described as horror. Mopril, who'd been halfway to the door, spun around so fast his tail knocked over a tray of instruments. Fenjo's throat sac inflated to 3 times its normal size, and she made a sound like a deflating balloon being strangled. The scanner refused to release Gina. She sighed, closed her datapad, and pressed her palm against the interior surface of the cylinder. "Hey," she called out, voice muffled by the barrier. "Can someone override this thing?" Nilkar rushed to the control panel, all 4 arms flying across interfaces with desperate precision. "Impossible. Impossible. The readings are... This cannot be." "What's happening?" Fenjo's voice climbed to registers that might shatter glass. "Is it the plague? Is it the consuming sickness? Oh, ancestors, not again. Not after what happened to—" "Everyone calm down," Mopril commanded, though his own scales had shifted to a pale, frightened green. He moved to the display, clawed hands dancing over controls. "There must be a malfunction. The scanner is ancient, yes, but it's maintained regularly. This reading suggests—" He paused, reading the data streaming across multiple screens. His pupils contracted to pinpoints. "No, no, this can't be right." Gina tapped on the cylinder. "Guys, I've got a meeting with Dr. Lin in 10 minutes, and I'd really like to not be trapped in here for it." "The sample," Nilkar whispered, "is losing approximately 30 million cells per—" He stopped, recalculated, all 4 arms now trembling. "Per unit? No. Per segment? The translation matrix must be corrupted." "It's not corrupted," Mopril said flatly. He turned to face Gina, and his expression carried the weight of someone who'd just watched their entire worldview crumble. "According to these readings, your body is simultaneously destroying and creating tissue at a rate that is fatal to any known organism." Inside the cylinder, Gina rolled her eyes so hard, she nearly gave herself a headache. "It's not fatal," she said. "It's just human." "Just human?" Fenjo repeated, her voice breaking. "Just human. The scanner is registering cascading cellular death across your entire epidermis. Your internal organs are shedding layers like a molting." She couldn't finish, overcome by either horror or the amphibian equivalent of a panic attack. The medical bay doors hissed open. Dr. Lin strode in, took one look at the flashing lights and trapped Gina, and her shoulders sagged with the exhausted patience of someone who'd seen this exact scenario play out too many times. "Let me guess," she said, walking directly to the control panel without breaking stride. "The scanner thinks she's dying." "Dying?" Nilkar's voice climbed an octave. "Doctor, the readings suggest active cellular disintegration coupled with aggressive self-replication. This is consistent with Class 5 biological contamination. This is Tuesday," Dr. Lin finished, already entering override codes. "Well, not Tuesday specifically. We don't have those anymore. But you get the idea. This happens every single time a human gets scanned." The cylinder released Gina with a disappointed hiss, as if the machine itself felt cheated out of a proper emergency. Gina stepped out, stretched, and checked her datapad. Still 3 minutes to spare. "As always," she said, not to anyone in particular, just to the universe at large. Mopril blocked her path, his considerable bulk suddenly very present in her personal space. "Explain, now. What is happening to your biology that triggers contamination protocols designed to detect species-ending plagues?" Gina looked to Dr. Lin, who gestured with one hand in a go-ahead. this should be fun, sort of way. Okay, Gina said slowly. So, you know how your cells are basically the same cells you were hatched with? Or spawned with? Or however your species does the birth thing? Nilkar's antennae quivered. Of course. Cellular stability is the foundation of complex life. Barring injury or illness, an individual's cells persist throughout their lifespan. Right, yeah, that makes sense. Gina nodded. Humans don't do that. Silence. What do you mean you don't? Mopril started. We replace them, Gina continued cheerfully. Constantly. Like, right now, as I'm standing here talking to you, I'm shedding somewhere between 30 and 40 million skin cells. They're just falling off, dying, getting replaced by new ones pushing up from underneath. Fenjo made that deflating balloon sound again. That's just skin, Dr. Lin added helpfully. She'd pulled up a holographic display and was scrolling through human anatomical data with the casual air of someone discussing the weather. Our stomach lining completely replaces itself every 3 to 5 days. Red blood cells? About 120 days before they're recycled and new ones take their place. Liver cells regenerate constantly. You could lose up to 75% of your liver, and it would grow back given enough time. Grow back? Nilkar seemed to be having difficulty processing this information. All 4 arms hung limply at his sides. You mean heal, scar tissue, reduced function, permanent damage with partial recovery over extended periods. Nope, Gina said, popping the P sound. Full regeneration, original function restored. It's not even considered particularly impressive by human standards. Kids do it faster than adults. The 3 aliens stared at her. The klaxons had stopped, but the red emergency lighting persisted, bathing the medical bay in crimson urgency that now felt deeply awkward given the casual direction of the conversation. How? Mopril said quietly. Are you alive? Dr. Lin laughed. Actually laughed, which broke the tension like dropping a crystal glass. That's the neat part. We're alive because of it, not in spite of it. Controlled cell death and replacement is kind of our whole thing. Humans are basically, what did that xenobiology report call us? She snapped her fingers, trying to remember. Temporarily cohesive biological chaos, masquerading as individual organisms, Gina quoted. I have it printed out in my quarters. Thinking of framing it. You can't be serious, Nilkar said. An organism that continuously destroys and rebuilds itself at the cellular level would require enormous energy expenditure. The metabolic cost alone would be. Why do you think we eat so much? Gina interrupted. Your species eats, what? Once every few cycles? We get hungry every few hours. Gotta fuel the biological chaos somehow. Mopril had moved back to the scanner's display, reading and rereading the data as if hoping it would change through sheer force of will. The bone tissue readings are particularly disturbing. There appears to be continuous low-level breakdown and reconstruction occurring throughout your entire skeletal structure. Yep, Dr. Lin confirmed. Complete skeletal replacement takes about 10 rotations, give or take. Every bone in our body recycled and rebuilt constantly. It's how we maintain structural integrity and repair damage. But you're not damaged, Fenjo whispered, finally finding her voice. Her throat sac had deflated to normal size, though it still pulsed with agitation. You're standing there, functioning normally, and your body is engaged in what should be catastrophic systemic failure. Gina shrugged. One species' catastrophic systemic failure is another species' baseline operational status. It's all relative. This is not relative. Nilkar's voice cracked. This This defies fundamental principles of biological stability. How do you maintain coherent neural structures if your cells are constantly dying? How do you retain memories? How do you remain you? Dr. Lin opened her mouth to answer, then paused. Okay, that one's actually a really good question, and the answer involves some complicated neuroscience about neural plasticity and synaptic connections that persist, even as individual neurons are replaced. And honestly, it's kind of fascinating, but also kind of terrifying when you think about it too hard. I'm thinking about it too hard, Mopril said. Maybe stop doing that, Gina suggested. The lights in the medical bay finally shifted back to normal white, though the damage to the alien's peace of mind was clearly permanent. Nilkar had sat down on a bench, all four arms wrapped around himself, in what might have been a self-comforting gesture. Fenjo was breathing into a medical bag. Apparently, hyperventilation was a cross-species concern. Mopril just stared at the humans like they were bombs that might detonate at any moment. Which, Gina supposed, from a certain perspective, they kind of were. So, she said brightly, are we good? Can I go to my meeting? Or do we need to run the scan again, get the same results, panic some more, and eventually reach the same conclusion that humans are just built different? Dr. Lin checked her timepiece. Actually, yes, we should probably get going. I wanted to discuss the upcoming joint training exercise with the Proxima medical teams. And, wait, Mopril said, holding up one clawed hand. You're saying this is normal. This scanner response is expected. Every single time, Dr. Lin confirmed. We've submitted multiple reports to the Galactic Medical Consortium requesting human-specific scanning parameters. Haven't heard back yet. The consortium moves slowly, Nilkar said, still looking shell-shocked. Consensus among 10,000 species requires patience, and a new alarm blared, different from the first, somehow even more urgent. The scanner display, which had returned to its gentle neutral patterns, suddenly exploded with new text. Secondary alert, foreign organism. Colony detected estimated count, 38 million entities. Classification, unknown. Recommendation, immediate quarantine and sterilization. Gina looked at Dr. Lin. Dr. Lin looked at Gina. Did they just discover your gut bacteria? Dr. Lin asked. I think they just discovered my gut bacteria, Gina confirmed. Fenjo fainted, her body hitting the floor with a wet slap that echoed through the suddenly very quiet medical bay. Gina sighed, pocketed her datapad, and turned back to the panicking aliens. Okay, she said. So, funny story about the 38 million tiny organisms living inside me. Nilkar stood so abruptly that two of his arms knocked over a medical cart, sending instruments clattering across the floor in a symphony of chaos. His multifaceted eyes flickered through color spectrums Gina couldn't even perceive, which probably meant he was experiencing emotions she couldn't name. 38 million, he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. Living inside you. Give or take, Gina said. She crouched next to Fenjo, checking the amphibian's pulse, or what passed for a pulse in her. Species. Still alive, just unconscious. Probably for the best, really. Could be more depending on what I ate recently. Had some fermented vegetables yesterday, so the count might be skewing higher. Mopril had gone perfectly still, which was somehow more alarming than if he'd started running in circles and screaming. His scales had shifted from frightened green to a sickly gray that suggested his species' version of existential dread. You're feeding them, he said. Not a question, an accusation. You're deliberately cultivating a colony of foreign organisms inside your digestive tract. Well, yeah, Gina said. They help digest food, produce vitamins, train our immune systems, protect against actually harmful bacteria. It's a whole symbiotic thing. Pretty standard for Earth species, really. Most complex life back home has some kind of microbiome situation going on. Dr. Lin had pulled up additional data on the holographic display, and the visualization now showed a rotating model of a human digestive system absolutely teeming with microscopic life. Billions of tiny organisms, color-coded by species, crawling over every surface, consuming, reproducing, dying, being replaced. It looked, even to Gina's eyes, kind of horrifying. This reading here, Dr. Lin pointed to a cluster of data points, shows bacterial colonies in the mouth, esophagus, stomach, intestines, basically the entire digestive pipeline. Different species in different locations, all serving different functions. It's actually a really elegant system when you understand the biochemistry. Nilkar was making a sound like steam escaping from a vent. Elegant? You call this elegant? You're walking contamination vectors. How do you not die from infection? How does your immune system not... He stopped, looked at the data, looked at Gina. Oh no. What oh no? Maparil demanded. Her immune system must be constantly fighting, Nilkar said, his voice climbing again. To maintain balance between beneficial and harmful organisms, to prevent the colony from overwhelming the host, she would need perpetual, aggressive immune response. The energy cost alone. Hence the eating every few hours, Gina reminded him. We've been over this. Humans run hot and fast. It's our whole deal. Mopril's claws clicked against the display controls. New data streams appeared, and his expression somehow got worse. There's more. The scanner's deep tissue analysis shows... No, this can't be right. It's detecting autonomous organisms inside your cells. Gina and Dr. Lin exchanged glances. Mitochondria? Dr. Lin guessed. Mitochondria, Gina confirmed. What? Mopril said very slowly. Is mitochondria? Dr. Lin took a breath. Okay, so a few billion rotations ago on Earth, there were these bacteria that were really good at converting nutrients into energy. And some larger cells basically, well, ate isn't quite the right word, but close enough. They absorbed these bacteria, but instead of digesting them, they kept them around, made them part of the team. Now, every cell in our body has hundreds of these former bacteria living inside them, producing the energy we need to function. The medical bay was so quiet, Gina could hear the environmental systems humming in the walls. You're not individuals, Nilkar whispered. You're colonies, trillions of cells, each containing ancient bacterial captives, all coordinating with billions of foreign organisms in your digestive system, everything dying and being replaced constantly. You're not organisms. You're ecosystems walking around pretending to be people. That's kind of poetic, Gina said. Depressing, but poetic. We prefer to think of it as collaborative existence, Dr. Lin offered. Though I'll admit the whole thing sounds alarming when you phrase it like that. Mopril was scrolling through human medical databases now, his movements frantic. I'm cross-referencing your species' healing capabilities with standard protocols. A fractured bone, which would permanently disable most species, you heal in 6 to 8 weeks. Soft tissue damage that would leave permanent scars on any other organism. You close the wound in days? How? How? Controlled cellular chaos, Gina said, using air quotes she knew they couldn't see. We already went over this. Cells die, cells replace, system keeps running. When something breaks, we just accelerate the replacement process in that area. The body dumps resources and immune cells into the damaged zone, clears out the wreckage, builds new tissue. Simple. Nothing about this is simple. Montperil slammed his hand on the console. The entire display flickered. By every measure we use to define biological stability, humans should not exist. You violate fundamental principles. We prefer to think of ourselves as challenging established paradigms, Dr. Lin said dryly. Behind them, Fenjo groaned and stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, focused on nothing in particular, then landed on Gina's face. "The organisms," she croaked. "Still inside you?" "Yep," Gina said cheerfully. "And will be until I die. They're kind of essential to the whole staying alive thing." Fenjo's eyes rolled back, and she fainted again. "Maybe we should get her to a recovery room," Dr. Lin suggested. "Maybe we should quarantine all humans until we understand the full scope of this biological nightmare," Mopril countered. His scales were flushing between gray and angry red. "The Galactic Medical Consortium needs to know about this immediately. This could be, we might need to reclassify your entire species." "Reclassify us as what?" Gina asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. Nilkar had pulled up regulations on his own terminal, scrolling through centuries of medical law. Class 5 Biological Hazard. Reserved for organisms that pose existential contamination risks to established populations. The last species classified this way was the consuming swarm of... "We're not a swarm," Dr. Lin interrupted. "We're perfectly harmless. Well, mostly harmless. Generally harmless under controlled conditions. You're walking colonies of trillions of organisms in constant states of death and reproduction." Mopril's voice had reached a pitch that suggested his vocal cords, or whatever he used to make sound, were close to their breaking point. "The scanner isn't malfunctioning. It's accurately reporting what you are." Gina's datapad buzzed. Message from Romy. "So how'd the scan go?" She typed back. "Started an interspecies incident. Standard rotation." "I'm calling an emergency council," Mopril announced. "Every medical authority in this sector needs to hear this." "Can we at least wait until after lunch?" Gina asked. "I'm getting hungry." All eyes turned to her. "Of course you are," Nilkar said quietly. "You need to feed the chaos." The Emergency Council convened in the Infinite Inquiry's main conference chamber within 2 hours, which was apparently record time for assembling representatives from 15 different species across 6 sectors. Gina sat at a long table that curved in a gentle arc, with Dr. Lin beside her and a growing sense that this whole situation was spiraling into absurdity. The holographic projectors flickered to life, and suddenly the room was filled with aliens of every conceivable shape, size, and texture. Some floated in liquid-filled tanks. Others stood on multiple legs or hovered on anti-gravity platforms. One looked like a sentient gas cloud contained in a force field. All of them were staring at Gina like she was a bomb that had just started ticking. Mopril stood at the head of the table, his scales still that unsettling gray color. "Honored council members, thank you for responding so quickly to this crisis. I've transmitted the full scanner data to your systems. What you're about to witness will challenge everything we understand about biological stability and individual organism classification." A council member whose name badge translated as Gormin, some kind of crystalline being that refracted light into rainbow patterns, spoke first. Their voice chimed like glass bells. "The data must be corrupted. These readings suggest the human specimen is simultaneously alive and dying at rates that would constitute medical emergency across all known species." "The data is accurate," Nilkar said. He'd positioned himself near a secondary display, all 4 arms moving across controls to bring up visualizations. "I've run diagnostics on the scanner 18 times. The equipment is functioning perfectly. The humans are just..." He paused, searching for words. Like this. The display lit up with a full-body scan of Gina, color-coded to show cellular turnover rates. Her skin glowed red, high activity. Her digestive system pulsed orange. Her bones showed steady yellow. Her blood vessels flowed with constant cellular replacement. She looked like a heat map of chaos. 30 million epidermal cells lost per day. Nilkar continued, his voice taking on the clinical detachment of someone who'd moved past horror into academic fascination. Complete stomach lining replacement every 3 to 5 days. Blood cell regeneration occurring continuously throughout the circulatory system. Bone tissue in constant state of breakdown and reconstruction. That should kill them, interrupted a floating squid-like being whose tentacles twitched with agitation. Cellular death at those rates produces toxic waste that would poison any organism. How do they process? They don't stop processing. Dr. Lin cut in. She stood, moved to the display, and pulled up additional data with practiced ease. Human kidneys filter approximately 200 liters of blood daily, removing cellular waste and dead tissue byproducts. Our liver processes toxins constantly. Our lymphatic system carries away debris. We're basically running a continuous cleanup operation inside our bodies every moment we're alive. A pause. Then Gormine spoke again, their chiming voice uncertain. That's actually remarkable. Inefficient, energetically expensive, but remarkable. It gets better, Mopril said, though his tone suggested he meant worse. Show them the microbiome data. Nilkar switched displays. The new visualization showed Gina's digestive tract rendered in nauseating detail, every surface crawling with color-coded bacterial colonies. Billions of organisms, all different species, all coexisting in what looked like barely controlled pandemonium. The squid being recoiled so hard they bumped into their tank's edge. That's a parasitic infection. It's symbiosis, Gina said. She'd been quiet until now, but this was getting ridiculous. Those bacteria help me digest food I couldn't otherwise process. They produce vitamins my body can't make on its own. They train my immune system and prevent actually harmful bacteria from colonizing the same spaces. Without them, I'd die. You're dependent on billions of foreign organisms for survival? A reptilian council member whose scales shimmered blue leaned forward. How do you maintain species integrity? How do you prevent genetic contamination? The bacteria stay in my gut, Gina explained slowly, like she was talking to children, which, given the apparently vast gulf in biological understanding, maybe she was. They don't integrate with my cells. They just live there. We feed them. They help us. It's a transaction. But if they're necessary for your survival, are you truly an individual organism? Gorman's question hung in the air like smoke. Or are you a collective? A mobile ecosystem masquerading as a single being? Gina opened her mouth, closed it, looked at Dr. Lin. Philosophy isn't really my specialty, Dr. Lin admitted. Nilkar manipulated the display again, and this time the visualization zoomed into a single human cell. The interior showed hundreds of small structures, each glowing with its own light. There's another layer. These structures within each cell, the human calls them mitochondria. They have their own genetic material, separate from the host cell's nucleus. They're descended from ancient bacteria that were absorbed billions of rotations ago. Every human cell contains hundreds of these former bacteria. The silence that followed was profound. So they're not just carrying bacterial colonies in their digestive systems, the blue-scaled reptilian said slowly. Every single cell in their body contains foreign organisms? Former foreign organisms, Dr. Lin corrected. They've been part of our cellular structure for so long they're basically integrated. But yes, technically, they have their own DNA separate from ours. How many cells? Guramin asked. In an average human? 38 million, Nilkar said. Each number seemed to hurt him. Give or take a few million. And each one contains hundreds of these mitochondria? Correct. More silence. Gina watched a jellyfish-like council member literally change colors from calm blue to alarmed purple. So a single human, Gormin said, contains trillions of formerly independent organisms that are now enslaved within their cells to produce energy? Enslaved is a strong word, Gina protested. More like long-term employment with benefits? This is horrifying, the squid being announced. I move that humans be immediately reclassified as Class 5 biological hazards and confined to quarantine zones until we can properly assess the contamination risk they pose. Seconded, said the blue-scaled reptilian. Wait, hold on, Gina started. Mopril raised one clawed hand. There's more you should see before voting. The human healing capabilities. Oh, come on, Gina muttered. Nilkar pulled up medical case files from human databases. Images appeared showing bone fractures, horrific breaks that would cripple any other species permanently. Then, time-lapse sequences showing the same bones knitting back together, cellular regeneration visible in the scans, until weeks later, the bone was whole again. This is impossible, stated a council member who looked like mobile fungus in a containment suit. Bone regeneration requires years of careful mineral deposition and cellular restructuring. This shows complete healing in weeks. That's actually on the slower end for humans, Dr. Lin said. Children heal faster, and these are just bones. Soft tissue damage heals in days. Minor cuts close within hours. Paper cuts. What's a paper cut? Gormin asked. Tiny skin laceration from thin materials, Dr. Lin explained. Heals in about a day. Doesn't even leave a scar. A day, Gormin repeated, for what would be a permanent disfigurement for my species. Humans can even regenerate partial organs, Mopril added, pulling up more files. Liver damage that would be fatal to 90% of known species? Humans can lose up to 75% of the organ and regenerate it completely given sufficient time and resources. The fungus being's containment suit speakers crackled. That's not healing. That's resurrection. That's cheating death itself. It's just cellular turnover, taken to a logical extreme, Dr. Lin argued. Our bodies are already replacing everything constantly. Accelerating that process in damaged areas is just an extension of our baseline biology. Your baseline biology is insane. The squid being's tentacles were waving frantically now. You're describing organisms that refuse to accept permanent damage, that treat catastrophic injury as temporary inconvenience, that carry trillions of foreign organisms inside them as standard operating procedure. This isn't biology. This is biological warfare. Against what? Gina demanded, standing up. We're not attacking anyone. We're just existing. Is it our fault that your species evolved in nice, stable, low-competition environments where you could afford to have long-lived cells and slow healing and eating once a week? Some of us come from death worlds where everything is trying to kill you all the time, and our biology reflects that. Death worlds? The blue-scaled reptilian's voice quavered. Earth, Dr. Lin said simply. Constant competition for resources. Predators everywhere. Parasites, bacteria, viruses all trying to colonize any organism that shows weakness. Extreme temperature variations. Natural disasters. Food scarcity. Our ancestors had to adapt to survive. And this she gestured at the displays showing human cellular chaos, is what survival looks like when the environment shows no mercy. The council chamber fell silent again. Gina could see it happening. The shift from fear to something else. Not quite understanding, but maybe the beginning of it. So, you're not anomalies, Gormine said quietly. You're adaptations. Extreme adaptations to extreme conditions. Exactly, Gina said. We're not trying to contaminate anyone or break your biological rules. We're just built different, because we had to be. Nilkar's antennae drooped. I think I need to recalibrate my understanding of what constitutes viable life. Join the club, Moparil muttered. The fungus being's speakers crackled again. I withdraw my vote for Class 5 classification. This requires more study, but these humans appear to be stable in their own chaotic way. Agreed, said the blue-scaled reptilian, though I'm adding a note to never visit their homeworld. It sounds terrifying. It has its moments, Gina conceded. The council session dissolved into smaller conversations, clusters of holographic representatives discussing human biology with the kind of morbid fascination usually reserved for natural disasters or particularly inventive horror entertainment. Gina slumped in her chair, exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical exertion and everything to do with spending 3 hours being treated. Like a biological freak show, Dr. Lin patted her shoulder. Could have been worse. At least nobody actually voted for quarantine. Give them time, Gina said. Wait until they find out about cancer. Don't, Dr. Lin hissed. Don't even joke about that. If they knew our own cells could randomly start reproducing uncontrollably, they'd seal us in containment faster than... What was that about uncontrolled cellular reproduction? Gormine materialized beside them, their crystalline form refracting the overhead lights into dancing rainbows across the table. Nothing, both humans said in unison. Gormine's internal structure shifted in what might have been skepticism. Your biology is fascinating, but I suspect you're not telling us everything. What other surprises should we expect from humans? Gina exchanged glances with Dr. Lin, then shrugged. You want the full list? Because it's long, and some of it is going to sound made up. I've already accepted that you're walking ecosystems powered by enslaved bacteria, Gormine said. At this point, I'm prepared for anything. Okay. Gina held up her hand, counting on fingers. Humans can survive losing entire organs, one of a pair, I mean. One of 2 lungs, 1 kidney, appendix, gallbladder, spleen. We can live without them. Sometimes we even donate them to other humans while we're still alive. Gormine's crystalline structure went completely still. You remove organs from living humans and transplant them into other living humans? When necessary, yeah. If someone's organ is failing, and we can find a compatible donor, someone whose body chemistry is similar enough, we can surgically remove the healthy organ from one person and implant it in another. Both people survive. The recipient can live for decades with someone else's organ functioning in their body. The crystalline being's surface developed what looked like stress fractures. That's impossible. Rejection response alone would... The immune system would... We suppress the immune system with medication, Dr. Lin explained. It's delicate, but it works. We've been doing it for over 200 rotations now. Your species can suppress its own immune response? Voluntarily? Gormine sounded like their entire worldview was crumbling in real time. Why would evolution grant you that ability? It didn't, Gina said. We invented it. Humans are really good at identifying problems and then throwing science at them until something works. Nilkar had drifted over, drawn by the conversation like a moth to flame. Wait, go back. You said humans can live with foreign organs inside them, from other humans. But wouldn't that create an identity crisis at the cellular level? If your immune system recognizes the organ as foreign. That's why we suppress it, Dr. Lin repeated. But you're right that it's complicated. The transplanted organ keeps the donor's cellular markers. The recipient's body knows it's foreign tissue. They just coexist. With help from medication, the body accepts the intruder as part of itself. That's not coexistence, Nilkar said. His antennae were vibrating at frequencies Gina could almost hear. That's forced integration. You're describing the ability to graft foreign biological material onto yourselves and make it work through sheer chemical manipulation. When you phrase it like that, it sounds sinister, Gina protested. Because it is, Nilkar's voice cracked. Don't you understand? Every species we've encountered has fixed biological boundaries. You're born with certain organs, certain capabilities, and those define you for life. But humans, you can lose organs, replace them with someone else's, suppress your own immune system, regrow damaged tissue. You're modular. You're biological machines that can swap out parts. Gina thought about it. I guess we kind of are. Mopril joined the growing cluster around the humans, his scales now cycling through confused patterns of green and orange. The more I learn about your species, the less sense you make. You're individually weak. No natural weapons, no armor, relatively poor sensory organs compared to specialized species, yet you've survived on a world you describe as a death world. How? Endurance, Dr. Lin said, and adaptability. We're not the strongest or fastest, but we can outlast almost anything. Humans can run for hours. Our cellular regeneration and energy metabolism mean we recover from exertion quickly. We can eat almost anything organic and extract nutrients from it. We can survive in extreme temperatures that would kill most species. We're generalists, not specialists. And we're really, really stubborn, Gina added. Spite is a powerful evolutionary motivator. The blue-scaled reptilian council member, whose name Gina had learned was Lonpix, approached the group. I've been reviewing your medical literature. Humans have a documented case of someone surviving being impaled through the torso by a metal rod. The rod went completely through their body cavity, and they lived. Oh yeah, Gina said. I think I know that case. Construction accident, right? Rod missed all the vital organs by sheer luck. They got to a hospital fast enough. Surgeons removed it. Body sealed everything up. Guy made a full recovery. Lonpix's scales rippled. That should be impossible. The trauma alone, the tissue damage, the contamination risk, the shock to the system. Humans are really hard to kill, Dr. Lin said simply. Our bodies fight like crazy to stay alive. Redundant systems, aggressive immune response, rapid healing, high pain tolerance. Evolution built us to take punishment and keep going. Why? Gormine asked. What kind of environment produces organisms that refuse to die? One where dying is really, really easy if you're not careful, Gina said. Earth is beautiful, but it's also constantly trying to murder everything on it. Predators, prey, competition for resources, diseases, parasites, environmental hazards. Everything that couldn't adapt went extinct. Everything that survived got really good at not dying. Nilkar had gone very quiet, all four arms folded across his thorax. I'm having an epiphany, and I don't enjoy it. Oh, good, Mopril said. What horrible realization are you about to share? Most species in the Galactic Consortium evolved in stable environments, Nilkar said slowly. Low competition, abundant resources, predictable conditions. We developed long lifespans, stable cellular structures, efficient energy usage. We're optimized for persistence, not adaptation. Right, Gina said, not seeing where this was going. Humans evolved in chaos, Nilkar continued. Everything about your biology is a response to an environment that demanded constant adaptation or death. You're not optimized for efficiency. You're optimized for survival under the worst possible conditions. Still not seeing the problem, Gina said. Nilkar's antennae drooped. The problem is that you're probably better adapted for galactic exploration than we are. We need controlled environments, specific atmospheric conditions, particular nutrient compositions. You can eat almost anything, survive in varied climates, heal from injuries that would cripple us, and you do all of this while carrying entire ecosystems inside you. You're not fragile specialists. You're robust generalists. You're biologically equipped for the unknown. The group fell silent. Around them, the conference chamber buzzed with ongoing discussions, but their little cluster had gone quiet as the implications sank in. That's actually kind of flattering, Gina said. It's terrifying, Lonpix countered. Your species has been in space for what, 50 rotations? And you're already serving on consortium vessels, integrating into galactic society, adapting to our technology and customs. Because adaptation is what you do. We're friendly adaptations, Dr. Lin pointed out. It's not like we're trying to take over. You might not need to try, Gorman said quietly. If your biology is as robust as it appears, and your cultural adaptability matches your biological adaptability, you'll spread through the galaxy simply by being better suited for it than those of us who evolved in comfort. Gina felt a strange mix of pride and discomfort. Look, we're not trying to replace anyone. We just want to be part of the community. Learn, share, coexist. That's it. I believe you, Nilkar said. But belief doesn't change biology. You're going to be successful out here, whether you intend it or not, because you're built for this in ways we never needed to be. Mopril's scales had settled into a resigned blue. The scanner wasn't wrong. It detected exactly what humans are. Organisms that break every rule we thought was fundamental to complex life. Controlled chaos. Biological paradoxes. Walking contradictions that somehow work. I'm putting that on a t-shirt, Gina said. A chime rang through the conference chamber. The holographic council members began flickering back to their home locations, the emergency session officially ending. The general consensus seemed to be humans were weird, possibly alarming, but not immediately dangerous. Medical protocols would be updated. Human-specific parameters would be added to scanning equipment. Life would go on. Fenjo, who'd been recovering in a side room for the past few hours, finally emerged. She looked fragile, her skin less luminous than usual, but stable. Did I miss anything important? She asked weakly. We taught the council that humans are basically nightmare fuel disguised as friendly neighbors, Gina said cheerfully. Oh, good, Fenjo said faintly. That's what I was hoping for. Dr. Lin checked her timepiece. Gina, you still need to complete your quarterly scan. Officially. For the records. Gina groaned. Really? After all this? Regulations are regulations. They walked back to the medical bay, which had been cleaned and reset. The scanner stood waiting, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing gently. Nilkar and Mopril followed, apparently too invested now to leave. This time we've implemented preliminary human parameters, Nilkar explained, entering commands. It should recognize cellular turnover as normal rather than catastrophic. Should? Gina asked. Science is imperfect. Gina stepped into the scanner. The cylinder sealed around her. The patterns began their dance. She waited, watching the lights pulse and spiral across her skin. 5 seconds passed. 10, 20, no alarms. 30 seconds. 45. The scanner chimed, gentle, calm, routine, and released her. Scan complete, Nilkar announced, checking the readout. All parameters within expected human normal ranges. No alerts, no contamination warnings. You're cleared for duty. Gina stepped out, stretched, and grinned. See, that wasn't so. Alarms blared. Red lights flooded the medical bay. The scanner's display flashed. Error, sample displays, self-replication. Everyone turned to look at the scanner. Then at Romy, who'd just stepped into the cylinder for his quarterly check. Datapad in hand, completely oblivious to the chaos about to unfold. He looked up at the alarms, looked at the panicked aliens, looked at Gina. "Let me guess," he said. "As always?" "As always," Gina confirmed. Nilkar made a sound like air escaping from a punctured hull. Mopril just sat down on the floor and put his head in his hands. And somewhere in the medical bay, Gina could swear she heard the universe laughing.